much. Hello, good morning. How are you? Good? Cool. Um, Hello, my name is Abhijit Sarkar. I'm from Virginia Tech Transportation Institute, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Mengzi from School of Medicine, and a special guest, Dan, who is also from VTTI. So today we'll be talking about continuous health monitoring of long-haul truck drivers. Okay. So, as you might know, that means everything from our groceries to the fuel to everything, your Amazon shipping, everything is done by long-haul trucking. And this is actually a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. If I just want to give you some perspective of this, like this is like 11.46 billion tons of freights that's generally moved by the heavy vehicle. So that's a huge number. So we can think about that this is probably one of the biggest backbone of the United States, of this country. And as part of this is like 3.54 million professional truck drivers and who works diligently every year, every day to make this possible. However, if we try to look at this industry and try to understand that means what is the current state of that, and some of the major problem in this industry are the driver shortage, and the other one is the driver retention. And over years, we continuously get message like this, that worse than you thought, truck driver shortage and demographics. We think about that Americans are like the truck driver shortage in the US continues. This is a plaguing problem for a long period of time. We don't have enough people who can help us. If we try to delve a little bit deeper about this problem specifically, we need to look at a little bit more about the lifestyle that these folks have to go through. Typically, what we have seen is that truck drivers, they have to drive from one part of the country to another part of the country, and sometimes cross-country as well. And as part of that, what happens is that they have to drive really, really long hours. They are away from their family. They don't have proper access to good food. They often sleep in the cab, or maybe they have to sleep in some roadside motels, which are not very healthy. On top of that, the other problem that happens as part of their lifestyle is that they really lack the typical physical activities that we require. So their life, as you can think about, that means they're sitting in the truck for quite a long period of time. And believe me, means that is not a very comfortable situation all the time. And it's like very much sedentary in nature. So you can imagine that means they probably don't get enough exercise that they should ideally get. So this kind of problems actually complicate the overall dynamics of driver recruitment, retention, and ultimately results in the shortage of drivers. And this particular lifestyle behavior also results in some of the critical health-related issues. And let me give you this in terms of some numbers, that 69% of truck drivers has problem with obesity compared to 31% of general population in this country. 87% of the truck drivers have hypertension or pre-hypertension compared to national average of 58.3%. Similarly, 18% of drivers leave the home and don't come back for minimum 30 days in a row. And these kind of statistics continues and kind of shows the struggle of the lifestyle and livelihood of a truck driver. And also it shows that how it actually adversely affects their health. Interestingly, we have seen, and my colleague Erin Mabry, who did some research, and her research shows that means most of the truck drivers, they suffer from sleep apnea. And this sleep apnea are often from like high BMI, hypertension, obesity. These are all part of this. However, this overall health has another implications, and the implications in safety. So these drivers, it has been shown through our research, is that the treatment, it can reduce the crash risk by 40%. On the contrary, like if non-treatment is there, then typically what happens is that the risk can increase significantly higher. So the health of the driver is definitely one particular problem and which is definitely affecting them. But overall, it is also affecting the road safety as well. So I want to invite my colleague and my friend Dan, who has been in law enforcement and who has been a professional truck driver for a long period of time, to share with us some of his experience over the years. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much for that. Morning, everyone. I'm Dan Faulkner, as the great picture up on the screen shows us all there. Continuing in a long history of being in the wrong place at the right time, I was out in the hallway one day, and Abhijit came up to me and told me he needed me for this project. So that's why I'm here today. But taking the short, easy path of what Abhijit had just shared with you, I will tell you that from firsthand experience, the slides that he's just covering, those are all very accurate from a driver's experience. So I've had my CDL now for almost 30 years. I spent about the first 6 or 7 years of my career driving full-time, driving around the U.S. from based out of Roanoke, heading as far out like Chicago, Texas, and back. It is a very hectic schedule. There are many complications that these drivers are dealing with out there on a daily basis. When I first started driving, one of the big things that stood out to me in that last slide, and actually in my photo up there, is when I first started driving, I was a skinny little guy. But there is no good path to having good health, unfortunately. Not an easy path anyway for truck driving. Now I will occasionally on my way in, because I live down in Roanoke, I'll pass by down where one of the truck stops is, and I'll occasionally see a truck driver out on a morning run. And that is by far the exception to the rule. And I'll see that guy and say, wow, that's not something I see every day. The lifestyle just does not lend itself to that. You have very tight, very hectic schedules, a lot of things that you're juggling, and then you get where you're supposed to be, and then there's a delay. And that delay, a delay for whether it's getting the truck unloaded or getting reloaded and out the door, the drivers are once again, they're fighting a battle of, I only have so many hours in a day I'm allowed to work. I only have so many hours that I can drive. And they have to sit there and be on pins and needles, so to speak, waiting for that opportunity to get called up to the dock and unloaded or reloaded. And then it's, now I've got to make up the time that I've lost. How do I do that? And how do they do that? They do that by not eating the best food because they can't get off the road anywhere. You know, they're stuck getting into the truck stop that's available. And generally, you've got, you know, a small selection of maybe some salads or fruit that was put together days ago, sitting in a cooler somewhere, or run in and grab the Hardee's cheeseburger, jump on the road, and then get back out again. You know, again, going back to what I was saying in the very beginning, when I first started driving, again, I was a little guy. Over my time of driving, when I went to get into law enforcement, just to kind of give a perspective of it, I started running every day because I had time. I was able to go home and not be somewhere else. And in a matter of about 3 months, I lost 60 pounds. And the only thing that I'd done different is I was not eating junk food nonstop, and I was actually being active. Again, these men and women that's out on the road, they just do not get that luxury. So it's really important that we start trying to find a way to, through better schedules, through better healthy options for eating, things we think about in the development of our parking options for drivers, things where there are opportunities for exercise, things where they can get out and they can do stuff. Right now, we just don't have that. You know, just looking at parking, it's a struggle just to find a place for them to park. Abhijit had asked that maybe I share an experience, and I'll share two experiences I think are really good, good examples of challenges specifically around sleep that the drivers are dealing with out there. The first one would be one from myself, and it was from probably 25 years ago, and I hope the fact that I'm sharing it with you in the detail that I do tells you how much it stands out to me, and this is an everyday struggle that drivers deal with. So very hectic schedule, delivery, was able to go home for a short period of time and then right back out on the road. I was able to go home, see one of our newborn kids, and then that was it. It was time to go. And I was headed to Chicago, and it's so vivid. I remember the road I was on. I was on the AA highway in Kentucky, and I remember riding along in the dark with my minimum amount of break time that I had to have, very little sleep, but I had somewhere I had to be. And I remember driving along, and I kept seeing all the crosses on the side of the road. And it's something that's always stuck with me. I think about it to this day. I think about it from my time in law enforcement and all the crashes that I dealt with. But I remember seeing all these crosses and thinking, man, there's a lot of wrecks on this road. And then I'm riding along, I don't know, a few minutes later, and why am I in the left lane? I have no need to be in the left lane. And I remember putting my turn signal on, getting back in the right lane, and then coming to the realization that the AA highway is a two-lane road. Why was I in the left lane to begin with? It's because I had gotten so tired, I was driving on the wrong side of the road and did not even realize it. All right? This is stuff that happens to these men and women every day. None of them are out there wanting to have a crash or have something bad go wrong, but this type of lifestyle leads to this type of activity. Another one being a little more recently, we used to get a lot of complaints in our department with truck drivers stopping and parking on entry and exit ramps along the interstate. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of opportunities for these drivers to park in good places, which again continues to feed into that bad lifestyle and bad, bad health outcomes. With my experience in trucking, I would do everything I could to afford these drivers as much time as possible before having to send them on down the road. And I remember a driver at the 156 on I-81. I got out and spoke with him one morning. I knew he had been there for many hours. I'd worked all night, and it's this point. He's had enough time. I've got to get him out of here. He's got to move. So I stopped, talked to the gentleman, tell him he's got to go. He says that his hours are reset, which is good. That means he can legally drive. And let's just say he wasn't the happiest that I was waking him up. We'll put it that way. He handled things in such a way that not only did he leave, he ultimately left with a ticket. He was not doing what he was supposed to do. He was sent on down the road. I'm doing some paperwork. And about 15 minutes later, a call comes over the radio about a crash on the interstate. And I'm like, hey, I'm close to that. Let me get on up there and see who I can help. I arrive on scene about 10 miles up the road, and there's a couple of folks standing on the side of the road, and they're pointing. They're like, he's down over there. He's over there. So I get out. I start to walk over, and I look down, and I go, that truck looks awful familiar. And lo and behold, it's the same guy. And as I start to climb down the hill a little bit, I find the guy laying in the grass. And he looks up at me, and the first thing he says is, oh, my God, are you going to give me another ticket? I'm like, no, fortunately, I'm not going to do that. The state police is going to handle that since you've had this crash. There's a little bit of humor to that particular instance, but the thing that's not humorous about it is the fact he is in that position to begin with due to the things these drivers have to deal with. And unfortunately, some officers, they don't take that approach because they don't have that background. They don't understand. They see a truck improperly parked. Law says the truck can't be here. You've got to move. And they send them on down the road. So even though I'd afforded that guy an opportunity to sit there and knowingly be in violation of what the sign said so he could get rest, still gets out on the road, still trying to make ends meet, do what he's supposed to do. And at the end of the day, he made a bad decision, and it ultimately led to a crash. So again, these are things that just happen just day in and day out with these drivers. There's just currently no good, in my opinion, no good real health avenue to better health. And it's something that through driver monitoring, through perhaps wearables and different technology that's coming out, it would enable not only the individual driver if they chose to participate or purchase things on their own, but also these fleet operators, maybe through different policies and hiring that they bring drivers in, they get buy-in from their employees, and then those fleet operators can in turn try to help develop some type of a better system, better monitoring, better way to help. Hopefully, it's get a healthier outcome in general for these drivers. Okay.
Thank you, Dan. That was wonderful. Yeah, means every time I meet Dan, have discussions, I learn a lot of things from him. So yeah, if you the time that he is here, if you want to chat with him, please do. So now the question is that Dan mentioned few things like that the weight gain, right? So that's a problem for us. They don't get enough sleep, right? So their circadian rhythm is very much disrupted as part of this. So what can we do? And means what has been done in this area. So mostly what we have seen is that means the question that we ask is that can we prevent the lifestyle problem that they have, which is this like the sleep apnea, hypertension, obesity, can we prevent that, or at least let them know at the start of their career? And it is very much known that when I was talking to Aaron, we were talking about that means most of these truck drivers, and Dan, you also said that means when they started, they were not overweight or obese, but means over the time and probably in the first few years, they actually gain this. So which is a huge problem overall. So can we just some way inform them so that means they can take care of themselves? And it's like the self-help is probably the best help, but that awareness, that means there is something wrong with that. Maybe not taking that extra shift, not probably driving that extra mile, means how can we just make them aware of that? And means in that case, like what kind of interventions may be most effective? Means how and means what about the regulations? Because means this is part of a bigger industry, and means their regulation is part of that. So means how all these thought process can be part of regulation, and how we can impact regulation in a very positive way, right? Which is not like a big brother kind of attitude towards the truck drivers, but rather maybe just helping them a very sustainable way. So the question that we ask is that, okay, can we use wearables? And one reason is that because this is health related, and means today means wearables can give us a lot of information, where maybe the regular health checkups can often take a lot of like hassle, and means going to the doctor. It's not that easy, right? And we don't do it very well all the time. So what wearable can measure, and means this is one particular graph that we actually tried wearable in 2012 when first some of the wearables were coming up, Garmin, and we saw that means generally drivers, their heart rate changes depending on where they are driving. So the A1 and A2 are actually city driving, and C is the highway driving, and B is one of the panic case where the driver almost missed a red light. Right? So heart rate can actually give a very good indication of this. And if we take a little bit of more deeper understanding, then something called heart rate variability, it actually talks about our heart. It gives very detailed information about our stress, the sympathetic and parasympathetic balance. It can talk about this one. The same thing can happen for like longitudinal measure. And means last year I was in India, great food. I ate lots of food, if you know about biryani. So I ate a lot of biryani there, and I gained weight, okay? And as part of that, I could see in my wearable, that means my resting heart rate, that is actually much higher. It's gaining up. And last year, again, in the middle of the year, I lost weights. And during that time, I could see that my resting heart rate is getting different, right? And there has been evidence that means the BMI and others, they actually affect this. And means there are evidence that the sympathetic and parasympathetic balance, that also gets affected as we gain weight for this one. So can we use that for the benefit? Right, and means we did a very basic understanding that what kind of systems are there, what are the measurements that is possible for us. It's like the skin conductance, heart rate, oxygen level, everything you can measure for your system right now. How many of you are wearing something today? like a wearable there? Okay, and how many of you regularly look at the data? Okay, great. So I think that the looking at the data, that made me revelation about myself. So we did some study, and means I would just go through maybe two particular incidents that we had total of 10 truck drivers who were driving long haul, and you can see means they start somewhere in the middle of the night, right? So the green one is that when they are sleeping, their heart rate really drops in. But when they start to drive, you can see that even if they are sitting in their cab, their average heart rate goes higher. And typically, average heart rate going higher means that they are more stressful over time. The same thing happens often for like the EDA as well. So sometimes the heart rate doesn't tell you the story, but the EDA, which is the electrodermal activity, it shows some of the evidences. But I mean, this is not very consistent. I just cherry pick some of the results here, and I mean, that's where the question comes that what kind of next step that we can work on this. And I want to invite Mengzi to talk a little bit about the kind challenges, and then means what is the next step for us.
Thank you so much. So how can we use wearable devices? Wearable devices can really help us to tell the drivers they're in risk and also can improve their drive safety? Yes, we can. A very simple approach is we could just encourage our drivers to use these wearable devices. And through using it, like many of you could check your seeing changes, your health indicators. That could inform you like how to make changes. And especially for the drivers, like Abhijit mentioned, only 30 of them seeing a primary doctors like regularly. But can we make this more proactive? Yes, we can. For example, we could design a fatigue detection system. And through using this system, it could detect that you need some rest. And the system will alarm you. And in addition, the system could also find the nearest rest station for you to take a break. Can we make it better? Yes, we can. We could also design an AI-based assistant, so this could help you to really understand the risk and help you to improve. So the system could use the sleep quality, heart rate, and also the meals you eat to give you a very tailored suggestion. We could even do better. We could link this information with your electronic medical record, and this could inform more. And you could also bring this information to your doctor, and your doctor will provide a more detailed intervention for you.
Thank you. So I want to just leave you with this thought that means this particular field of research is very much underexplored. And means there are many questions that we can ask. That means how we can collect longitudinal study, how we can understand their health, how can correlate them with their driving style and driving fashion, and also start thinking about that how to integrate this with regulation, with fleets. And also a big part of this is data privacy. So how we can address this and means just going forward to help the drivers, help this country, and help our economy as part of this. I want to thank my colleagues, Aaron and Suren, as well as Stacy and the Center for Future Workplaces and Practice for funding this work. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, please let me know.
We have just a few minutes for questions. What questions do we have in the room or online?
So in 2024, they passed the electronic logging device law. So truck drivers are required to log the hours they drive. And as you said before, it like resets every 14 hours. It doesn't log, however, the time spent loading that you're waiting at a shipping warehouse or unloading. How does that play into the health? Have you seen any information where that is taken into account? Because I know it leads to a lot of sleeplessness for some of the drivers.
Okay, then you want to take this?
So I can only somewhat answer this. It's probably become from about a 30,000-foot level because it's not my direct specialty. I do know that at VTTI right now we actually have some research going on this, and it falls under what's called driver detention. So the time that they're waiting for loading. And again, this is kind of where the research is that are they on duty or are they not on duty? Are they sitting out in the parking lot and they're told, hey, you're absolutely going to do nothing for the next 3 hours. We need you for nothing. Then they could be off duty. But the problem being is that in most cases they go, we're going to get you in as soon as we can. And that might be 5 minutes from now, or that might be 3 hours from now. So the driver's sitting there, and maybe the driver's catching up on paperwork, or the driver is trying to do some type of maintenance to their truck or things of that nature. Well, they're still on duty, so they're not getting any rest. And you'll see the occasional driver, or I shouldn't say occasional, but you'll see drivers who try to seize an opportunity and literally sit in the seat, throw a pillow on the steering wheel, and fall asleep at the wheel, and maybe get a 10-minute nap or wake up 2 hours later with somebody beating on the door. So that's why I say it's a good question, and it's something we're trying to figure out a way to how do we improve it.
Can you all talk about how you got into this kind of research? What did you study, and how did you come to create your team?
So I think that the one part of the motivation was that I was part of the division of freight transit and heavy vehicle, and means we always talk about this, and as Dan mentioned, like that there has been lots of research going on, trying to understand safety, trying to understand health. So that's where I get interested in this one, and I have been also looking at wearables in general because in general, like the medical cost is like very, very high in this country or anywhere in this world. Medical cost is going really, really high. So how wearables can actually come in this space and then probably help us solving some problems for us. Mingzi and I met in one of the workshops, and we started talking, and I felt that, yeah, means as generally I look at things from an engineering perspective, so that's where maybe I was telling Mingzi that, okay, I do so many things wrong. I have so many information wrong, so please help me in like giving some kind of medical perspective of this one. So that's where we collaborated on this.